Once upon a time, WWE asked themselves a question nobody else was asking. What if wrestlers didn't wrestle, but instead drove cars with rocket launchers? And, well, in 2003, the world got their answer. Welcome to the Worst Racing Games, the series where you guys suggest different racing games that you think are terrible, and then I play them, review them, and rank them. The Wheel of Worst Racing Games has chosen WWE Crush Hour this week. So before we dive into the gameplay, let's just talk a little bit about the history. The game was developed by Pacific Coast Power and Light, who up until that point were mostly known for developing a couple of MX games for the PS2 and GameCube. Eventually, THQ renamed the studio to Locomotive Games, where they would go on to work on just a couple of more titles, such as the PSP ports of Cars and Ratatouille. They were then sadly shut down in 2008. Anyway, WWE Crush Hour launched in March of 2003 in America, and May of 2003 in PAL regions, and this was published of course by THQ. It was released on PS2 and GameCube, and an Xbox version was in development but was later cancelled. Whilst the reasons are officially unknown, there are definitely some reasons that we can speculate over, which we will later in the video. Okay, so let's discuss the premise of WWE Crush Hour. So, the game starts with Vince McMahon taking control over every single television network.
Welcome to the landscape of television now that WWE owner Mr. McMahon controls all the networks. Now you can see his WWE superstars in all your favorite TV shows and commercials. And though the critics continue to protest, you can't argue with success.
Where every channel now stars WWE wrestlers, in both TV shows and in the adverts. And so Crush Hour is his newest TV show, which is a vehicle combat demolition derby style show featuring over 30 WWE superstars in various different cars fitted with various different guns. It's basically Twisted Metal starring wrestlers. The game opens with a pretty funny cutscene cutting through some of these channels, and it just is so early 2000s, I love it. So once you're in the game, what do you actually do in Crush Hour? Well, you've got a couple of different modes. You've got your standard exhibition match where you just choose your superstar, choose the arena, and jump straight in. Or you've got the season mode, which is basically career mode, where you choose a superstar and work your way through up until the final boss. So let's focus on that career mode. So every match is structured like an arena battle, and there are a few different game types that you'll play through during your time in career mode. There are death matches where you have to try and get 5 kills, 10 kills, or just the most amount of kills during a certain time. Cage matches are reimagined as locked arenas, and then there are item-based modes such as picking up a belt or a crown, and sometimes you have to hold on to that item for 30 seconds to win, other times you have to collect so many to win. So how do you actually play? So for reference, this is the PS2 version, so I will be referencing PlayStation control schemes. To accelerate, you hold X, and to steer, you use the left analog stick, but you can also use the D-pad. Then each car comes equipped with a gun which you fire using the right bumper, and then if you pick up a weapon, you can fire that with the right trigger. You can then also boost with the circle button, use the square button to brake, and if you want to do a sharper turn, you can use the left bumper. So fairly standard decent controls, but how does it actually play? Well, imagine Twisted Metal, if Twisted Metal was slower, clunkier, and controlled like a shopping cart with 3 missing wheels. There are a few maps later on into the game that require tighter and more precise driving, but the handling just doesn't allow for this because every car feels like you're driving on ice. It's very hard to do tight turns, and when you fall off a map and you're not knocked out by someone else, you actually lose one of your kills or your points. So there were a few occasions where I was stuck playing maps for a lot longer than I wanted to be, because I just couldn't grasp the slippery controls with the tighter maps. So this is a vehicle combat game, and we've discussed how the vehicles are, so how is the actual combat? Well, it's okay. As I mentioned, each car comes pre-equipped with a base gun, and each of those base guns just kind of feel like the pea shooters from Plants vs. Zombies. They do pretty much next to no damage, and you just don't feel powerful at all when they're being fired. This is WWE, everything should be big, explosive, dramatic, and instead I've just got a really pathetic little shooting sound. As well as this, you can also use your car to ram opponents, and you can boost into them for added damage. It's kind of satisfying when you pull it off, but the physics are a bit wonky, so sometimes it just doesn't feel very good, and sometimes it just doesn't work at all. And then of course there are power-ups and pickups for weapons. Some of them are pretty good, some of them are not so great. There are some good choices, like some missiles that lock on, a barrage of missiles that lock on, grenade launchers which are good for close range. But then again, there are also some more useless weapons, like a railgun that does next to no damage, and sometimes misses, and you only get 2 shots with it, so it's kind of pointless. There are also speed boosts you can pick up, added armor for your car, brief invincibility, and a battering ram you can put on the front of the car. It's a decent enough lineup of different weapons and power-ups to use, but when compared to more famous vehicle combat games, Twisted Metal, it's not really that great. Another issue that I experienced with WWE Crush Hour was the AI. The AI goes from being completely brain dead to the Terminator in a matter of a few matches throughout your career mode, and it's just such a ridiculous difficulty spike. It's a pain in matches where you're solely just doing combat, but in levels where you have to go around collecting items before someone else, it's so much worse because the maps are unnecessarily big, and of course the AIs are going to be much better at navigating them than you are. It's not all bad, however. If you're a big fan of the WWE, then this game does have a lot of fan service. There's very good commentary, and some of it just sounds hilarious because they're describing Dwayne Johnson picking up a rocket launcher. There's a pretty good roster. You've got The Rock, Stone Cold, Triple H, Hulk Hogan, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, and many more. Every wrestler has a few different catchphrases and voice lines that, after a while, do get a bit repetitive, but it's still cool nonetheless.
You can smell what The Rock is cooking.
And you'll also get to watch and hear all of their intros before each match, unless you want to skip it, of course. The game is just absolutely stuffed with that classic early 2000s WWE cheese, and it's all the better for it. Now, in terms of its visuals, the game looks okay. Some of the wrestler models on the character selection screen are kind of funny now, like 20 years later. I'm pretty sure Dwayne Johnson would sue me for defamation if I shared this image of him. The cars themselves look okay, the environments look okay. At the end of the day, this was a more budget title in the WWE series, so I wasn't expecting anything too fancy in terms of its visuals. The game just kind of feels like THQ went, oh, wrestling's cool, car combat games are cool right now, let's throw them in a blender and see what happens. And unfortunately this was the result. To me, it feels like the game can't decide if it wants to be a fun party game, a serious combat game, or just some WWE fanfiction written by a 12-year-old with a cool Hot Wheels collection. So how did the game hold up in terms of its critical response? Well, not fantastically. It currently holds a 56 out of 100 on Metacritic, with a user score of 5.1 out of 10, so just mixed or average all round. With critics citing that there was just not enough content and the gameplay was just kind of uninspired. And you know what? Fair enough, I don't always agree with critics, but I do have to agree with that. The game would go on to sell okay on the PS2 with about 300,000 copies sold, with the GameCube version not even cracking 100,000 with 80,000 copies sold worldwide. And that brings us nicely back around to the question as to why the Xbox port was cancelled. Well, it didn't review well, it didn't sell particularly well, it was just kind of a failure all round, so I'm not surprised that the game was cancelled for the Xbox. So now the time has come to rank WWE Crush Hour in our worst racing games tier list. Now, I sat and thought about this one for a little while, and I was tied between rubbish and meh. But for me, I'd say it's meh. It's got a good idea, it's an absolutely ridiculous crossover of ideas, it's got some 2000s charm to it, it just doesn't have enough content and the controls are a bit floaty. If you are a big WWE fan and you want to check out everything the franchise has to offer, then I would probably recommend Crush Hour, but if you just want to play a vehicle combat game, I would not recommend it whatsoever. So where does Crush Hour stand today? As an actual game, kinda bad, but as a time capsule of WWE's absolute insanity in the early 2000s, it's priceless. It's not worth playing really for the gameplay, but for the pure what the hell factor, absolutely. It's the kind of game I'd pull out at a party just to prove it actually exists. And so that takes us to the end of our look at WWE Crush Hour, and with it, this week's episode of Worst Racing Games. So tell me, were you a fan of WWE Crush Hour? Did you not like it? Let me know in the comments down below, and as always, if you have a suggestion that you want to see in this series, pop that in the comments as well. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe and tap the bell for notifications of my future uploads. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.